What's up, guys? This is Hector with What the Heck Are We Learning? And today we're going to be discussing how comprehension, learning, and memory develop as a child gets older. Certain skills begin to also develop in predictable sequences. So today we're going to be looking a little bit at those sequences, so we have more of an idea about what's going on with our kids as they continue to develop. A few things we definitely want to consider when we're looking at these different developmental stages. Some of the things we want to consider are that at different ages, children think differently and they're able to handle complex and abstract information at varying levels of their development. Another thing we want to consider is that kids actively construct knowledge based on, let me rephrase that. Kids actively construct knowledge when they immediately grasp information and they begin to process it on an active level as opposed to a passive level. When this is taking place, children are beginning to make connections, they're beginning to question the information that they're receiving, or they might even challenge the information that they're getting during their learning process. Something else we want to consider when we teach. You done, Chris? You good? You good? Another thing that promotes cognitive development is that when we understand what their comfort zone is on a cognitive level and then begin to teach just outside of that comfort level, that increases the rigor of the content of information that the children are obtaining. Another thing we want to keep in mind is that children must be able to share the ideas and share the perspectives that they have with each other as well as with adults. That also promotes their cognitive development. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the three different areas: cognitive development, physical development, as well as social emotional development, into 4 different grade areas. This is primary grades, upper elementary grades, junior high school, as well as high school. When we're talking about primary grades, we're discussing When we're talking about primary grades, we're discussing the ages of kindergarten up to 3rd grade. Now, some of the characteristics that are exhibited by our students in kindergarten to 3rd grade on a cognitive level are they are learning, or they're able to grasp concepts as well as developing their language skills. On a physical level, they're beginning. What? On a physical level, they're refining their gross motor skills and developing their fine motor skills. Now, the difference between the two: gross motor skills involve the upper torso, arms and legs, the bigger parts and portions of the body, as opposed to the fine motor skills that are focusing on the fingers and the toes and those smaller, more intricate movements. Go ahead, Chris, hurry up.
What did he say?
He said it's dark. Shit, I just missed that. Also, we noticed that girls tend to mature or develop on a physical level quicker than boys, and all children during these stages tend to exhibit high levels of energy, which equate to low levels of intention. Oddly enough, we start to see that in adults as well, but that's a different discussion. We'll talk about that later, I promise. On a social level, children in kindergarten through 3rd grade tend to develop independence, and they're starting to understand gender identity. And they use some of that social energy to please adults. How could a teacher help kids in these particular grade levels? Well, on a cognitive level, what a teacher might want to do is they might want to use concrete examples, as well as use lots of modeling and illustrating how the child can perform the specific tasks that are asked of them, as well as utilizing concrete references in order to express abstract concepts. Concrete references could be storytelling, utilizing parables, or any kind of other concrete reference. On a physical level, a teacher could create play areas for running and climbing and jumping, as well as providing a child with activities such as coloring or cutting, and and help refine or develop their fine motor skills. Kind of like grabbing their hand and teaching them how to hold the pencil and how to use it. On a social emotional level, a teacher could encourage a child to have a little bit more independence and display some initiative, as well as providing the child with opportunities for cooperative activities, as well as giving them lessons that ensure success. We're talking about grade levels 4 through 6. Some of the characteristics that are displayed by students in these grade levels are on a cognitive level. They're starting to understand logical operations with concrete materials. Their verbal and written abilities begin to show improvement. Also, on a physical level, we're starting to see slow and steady physical growth, as well as growth spurts. On a social-emotional level, these children are beginning to illustrate and develop a sense of self-worth. So some suggestions that can be utilized with these students could be providing a variety of concrete experiences, as well as encouraging conversations about abstract concepts, as well as using concrete manipulatives. So you could utilize pennies, and you could utilize blocks, Lego blocks if necessary, in order to teach abstract concepts. On a physical level, a teacher could promote appropriate eating habits, as well as encourage physical fitness, as well as team activities, and reassure uncomfortable kids about their appearance. Now, on a social-emotional level, a teacher could create learning experiences that lead to success through work and effort. Now, Chris, can you do me a favor? Can you take that last thing and just put it higher right there? You know, I think that sound of poltergeist was the microphone adjusting downwards. For the grade ranges from 7 through 9, some of the character traits that we're starting to see with students in this area could be on a cognitive level. They're able to think on an abstract level. They're able to think systematically, hypothetically. Also, they're able to think deductively as opposed to inductively. That is to say, when they're reasoning, they're able to see fact A, B, and C results in this particular conclusion. Also, on the physical level, we're starting to see growth spurts, as well as physical maturation and puberty. On the social-emotional level, we're starting to see deepening social relationships, as well as experimentation with personal identity. So this is where you start to see all those wild fads and styles. Also, they're beginning to form intimate one-on-one relationships. We'll probably get on that later. Hopefully we won't. Now, some things that teachers could do is they could provide opportunities for abstract thinking, abstract thought processes. They could also recognize the inclination for a child to challenge the information that they're receiving, as well as take full advantage of the moral dilemmas that are presented in their education or in their learning. See, a lot of that happens with a subject like, let's say, social studies, where lots of questionable moral situations take place. You want to take full advantage of those opportunities. We call those teachable moments. We also want to minimize activities that highlight or bring attention to the physical maturation process that these children are going through at this particular stage of development. Now, for the high school grades, we're dealing with grades 10 through 12 or 9 through 12. We start to see a lot of these characteristics overlap. You're beginning to see, on a cognitive level, full adult abstract reasoning processes, abstract reasoning skills. They begin to become far more developed than before. So much so that interacting with these high schoolers on a cognitive level is almost equivalent to interacting with some of your peers that are adults. I know it's sad, but it's true. We're also beginning to see full physical maturity on a developmental level, as well as increasing interests in intimate relationships on the social-emotional level. We start to see lots of emotional roller coasters during this time period. It's insane. We want to highlight learning styles in the 7 intelligences, as well as take into consideration Bloom's taxonomy. We're going to take a look a little bit at that because it focuses a little bit more on higher order thinking skills and some of the activities that can be associated with higher order thinking skills. Also, we want to promote healthy bodily images for these students that are hypersensitive about what they look like or their appearance. And lastly, we want to ease anxiety for the future as well as post-secondary lifestyles or career options. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the 7 intelligences, what those look like, how to identify them, and potentially we're going to be looking at higher order thinking skills. We're going to provide you with a few strategies on how to work with the different intelligences. We'll be seeing you next time on What the Heck.